With the Trump administration officially running the White House now, it's become a common conversation topic, I suppose you could say, amongst farmers at coffee shops across the country, wondering what the impact may be of this new government on Canadian agriculture and Canadian food system. Now, while agriculture was likely the least talked about issue in the November election campaign, which is not necessarily new, there are some things that may be worth keeping an eye on for farmers, food processors, and those in agribusiness. JP Gervais is Vice President and Chief Agricultural Economist at Farm Credit Canada, and he joins me here. JP, what's your take on this? Every conversation you have with a farmer these days, it's sort of the elephant in the room of what impact the Trump administration might have on Canadian food and farming. What's your take on this?
Well, yes. I mean, it's hard to argue that whatever comes up in the United States is not going to impact us, right? The one statistic I like to point out is if you look at our exports of ag products, so commodities coming off the farm and going to the U.S., just the U.S., that's 30% of our Canadian ag GDP. Now, I don't say this to mean that if anything happens between the relationship between Canada and the U.S., that we're going to see a 30% drop in farm income. But this just highlights the importance of the U.S. market for us. I'm actually, despite the pushback, I think it's fair to say against trade from the new U.S. administration, I'm actually pretty positive that we're going to be able to enjoy a similar kind of market access that we've enjoyed in the past. Okay. But nonetheless, I really believe that there are a few things to watch and monitor when it comes to the new U.S. administration. I would say three things mainly. One is, I would say trade of livestock. We fought the battle and we won the battle of country of origin labeling. This policy was replaced and eliminated not too long ago. But in the process of building his transition team, the president-elect then Trump had actually brought somebody that actually was saying, hey, maybe we could take a look at this again. So that would be hurtful for Canadian producers. I mean, the supply chain between Canada and the U.S. when it comes to livestock is well integrated, and so that would hurt us. I'm actually pretty confident that this is not going to go anywhere, but that's really just because of the importance of this. That I think that's something for sure to monitor. Okay. The second thing I believe is the China-U.S. trade relationship. China is just have a big impact in ag markets now. Mm-hmm. If you think of soybeans, it imports about 60% of all the soybeans that are traded in the world. And now it's,
Wow.
Yeah, and in the grains and oilseed markets, as you know, it starts with soybeans and corn in North America, and then it evolves to different commodities like wheat and canola and so on. So, if whatever happens, and I'm not so sure, as you said at the very beginning, Kevin, it's speculation right now, but it did, President Trump did mention and highlight or point out China as a country that manipulates the value of its currency, and that should stop at one point. And so whatever comes up with, between the U.S. and China, well, the question then is, are we going to get caught in a crossfire, so to speak, or are we going to be able, on the flip side of that, we could even be able to backfill some of the sales that the U.S. could lose if it does anything against China and if China retaliates against the U.S. So for me, the U.S.-China relationship is absolutely important for ag. And the third thing would be the ethanol mandate in the United States. As you know, about 40% of the corn crop coming out of the U.S. goes to ethanol. Sure. And so obviously, if you're to change that, this would have a major impact in the marketplace. Hard to say again, what is going to happen. I mean, if you look at the cabinet that Trump has put together, some are actually have been publicly opposed to the ethanol mandate in the United States, but that's an issue that's been legislated, right? So it comes from legislation, and so legislation would have to change. So there's no necessarily executive power when it comes to the ethanol mandate, first of all, and second of all, I think the mandate is safe. If you look at who's been supporting President Trump in this last election, a lot of that support comes from the U.S. Midwest. And so I really do think that is safe on that end. But that's one of the things I would point out as something to monitor when it comes to what is going on in the United States. And so there's a lot of different things. Obviously trade is a big issue for us. So there are lots of different things to monitor in 2017. Likely to be quite interesting, I should say.
For people that are interested to follow this, just sort of describe what's the best way to follow your work.
I think following the blog would be the best, one of the best tools to keep appraised of all the trends evolving in 2017. And what we do often is we're going to link to where we got the news in the first place. So that allows you to get a bit, sometimes even a different perspective on what the outlook is, which is good as well. You know, in this kind of world, you don't want to be overloaded with too much information, but having diverse points of view is actually very good for you to think about what's the best course of action for my business and my business plan over the next couple of years.
Interesting stuff, JP. We're going to follow this on your blog over the coming weeks and months, and thanks again for the chat.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Kevin.